Well, hey there, and welcome to today's Livecast. I am super excited today because I have got a fantastic gentleman here that has written a great book. And it's been a long time in the making. He's been working on this for a long time and bringing his experience in the business field and, interestingly enough, in drum circles to the business field. And I would like to bring on, without really any further delay, the one, the only Jim Boneau. Jim, come on in. I'm excited about your book. Welcome.
Thanks, Everett. It's really nice to be here. And I appreciate the look on your face, too, as you start to say, yeah, his experiences and drum circles, because that look of like, do these things go together on your face? And so that's what we're exploring, isn't it?
Well, and Jim, when I first met you and you first gave me the concept, it hit me instantly. So let's do this. And now, actually, before we go too far, I just want to let you know, if you put comments in, I have the opportunity to bring them up and share them with Jim. And so if you're watching this, please do say hi, hello, where you're from. And I would love that. And if you have questions of Jim as we go on, please put them in as well. As we talk about this terrific book, The Rumble Zone, Leadership Strategies in the Rough and Tumble of Change. So Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and how this idea came to be.
I sure will, Everett. So I started my career back in the late 80s, early 90s as a software engineer. And I was a software engineer. I worked for a couple of software companies, was a leader in organizations. And just like so many companies, my company had a big offsite team building event. And this was in the year 2000. And, at this point, I was in business. I was leading parts of a couple of software companies that I had been a part of, and adventurous in the things I wanted to try. So we hired a team to come in that was a bunch of drummers that did team building using percussion and drum instruments. And I just was fascinated with this idea of using music and rhythm to help build teams. It's something I had never been a part of before. I was a musician growing up, played in my high school band, but not a professional. But I was just enamored by the experience. So I ended up going from just attending this conference with my workplace to actually going to a workshop in Hawaii 2 weeks later to learn how to lead drum circles. And I thought I was going to learn how to lead corporate professional programs and drum circles. And what I really encountered in Hawaii was a group of people that care about building community, care about igniting human spirit in ways that I just found fascinating and inspiring. And I attended this week-long workshop. It was, one of those things that you say things are life-changing. Well, it really was for me, because after I got back from Hawaii, a month later, I quit my job. I packed up my apartment. I drove across the country, and I moved from Texas to Seattle to pursue a dream that I didn't really have the full form of, but I knew it was something that I wanted to pursue. This opportunity to share music and rhythm with communities, not just in the workplace, but communities of people that are older folks in healthcare centers, kids at risk, populations that needed community building and support and just didn't have the attention to it. But so many of my drum circle facilitator friends were doing that work, and I jumped into that. Now, that just started a whirlwind of activity for me in my life that not only caused me to quit my job and to challenge my career and to move across the country, but I also learned a lot about myself. I realized who I was as a person and that I was a gay man. And once I figured that out and kind of started living into that, I also found out that I had cancer. So in this very short time frame of about a year and a half in 2000, I went from having a good job and knowing that life really wasn't what I wanted it to be, all the way to having no job, having cancer, living very far away from the home that I knew but I knew again that I was in the right place and wanted to lean into this. And certainly my drummer friends were a huge support during all of that as well. I eventually got better from the cancer, and I continued to pursue my dreams. I wanted to be a leadership coach and workshop facilitator and work with leaders in organizations. I think that the best way that I can help in all of these communities that we've talked about before is to help leaders be more effective. So I became a leadership coach, led workshops, but the drumming never went away. And I was actually leading a drum circle at Microsoft one time. I was doing a bunch of leadership development for them. They knew me as the drum guy. And so they said, hey, can you bring in some drums and do a team building for 500 of our engineers? I did.
Wow.
And it was that experience that the Rumble really came to life to.
Okay. So that's the whole, explain the concept of the Rumble Zone and how that applies in a business world. Because this is a business book, right? Leadership strategies and the rough and tumble of change. Explain this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't even have to barely talk about the rough and tumble of change today, between the pandemic, between everything that's happening in the economy, and our widespread acknowledgement of the racial injustice that's happening. We all know what it's like to be in a state of constant change, in this change that's igniting every part of us and getting our emotions, getting our thoughts. So we know that experience, but it was the Rumble that came in with this group at Microsoft, Everett, that really helped me see the connection between drumming and leadership. Because this group of engineers, they had never drummed before. They were in this circle having a good time. We eventually, the groove, the song started to fall apart that they were playing, as they always do. And, just like a leader in an organization, when transition comes in, I, as the facilitator, had a lot of choices to make about how to deal with transition. Again, I know leaders have this same thing. I took a risk, though. I actually just had the group do what we call in the drum circle world a rumble. And basically a rumble is people making as much noise, as many notes as they can. Often it's a real celebratory thing at the end of a drum circle. But this group at Microsoft, they went into the rumble because they wanted to get to the other side of it and get to an even better groove than they were playing before. And the level of intensity that they brought into that change, the determination, the desire to go from one good place to another good place was amazing, to see it on their faces, to see the effort of it. But no words were spoken. They figured out on their own, through this chaotic rumble, how to create another groove. And Everett, it was really that moment that helped me see that this is the same work that I do with my leadership clients. When I see leaders challenged in organizations trying to get over, an external hurdle or some personal hurdle that they've encountered themselves, they go through that state of rumble. They're in their rumble zone. It feels like chaos. There's a lot of activity going on, not really sure what's going to emerge from the other side of it. And for me, thinking about the work that I do with leaders, that's where I need people to get, is to that rumble zone, to that place of acknowledging and seeing all the change that's occurring around them and finding their unique, authentic response, however frightening that might be. One of the first things I talk about, one of the first strategies in the book, is around the idea of courage. Because, Everett, so many organizational leaders today talk to me about the courage that it takes them to try to make things better in their own rumble zone. The courage to challenge a manager on a strategic decision, or the courage to stand up to poor behavior and to say, no, we have a different set of values in this organization. We want something different. And again, given what's happening today in so many areas of the country, so many leaders are having to find the courage to say, no, this is what I believe is right, and this is how I want to lead the way in this. And all of that comes from the rumble zone, from that chaotic time of so many things coming together. And me as an individual leader, an individual person in that, trying to decide how I can get to the other side of that and improve my relationships with the people that I'm working with and stay connected human to human to others. I think that's the other thing that I've learned in the Rumble Zone that's so important to me is being through change, thriving through change, and staying connected to the people that are most important to me, that can support me and that I can support them as we emerge through this rumble time. And that's what I'm hoping to share with people through this book. I just think in what's happening in the world today, there's a sense of, wow, everything feels like it's shaking up around me. And I know that's certainly how I felt for a part of this. And I had to go back to my own words and say, how can I thrive in this rumble zone? And Everett actually inspired a final chapter of the book, really thinking about how I was using my own methodology to work through the rumble zone when the pandemic first hit in March. So I think I got a real use of it in my life. And I certainly see leaders and organizations resonating with the ideas of going into the rumble zone, having to be with all of the chaos, all the challenge, all the unknown and uncertainty around us, and still being responsible for moving the organization forward and taking care of the people within that organization.
Wow. So first, I'll be remiss if I didn't tell people, go get the book on Amazon. You can get the book on Amazon today. And in fact, the Kindle version is only 99 cents right now. So that's a launch day special. You want to take advantage of that right now. You can find it on Amazon, or you can use the URL you see on your screen right now. So definitely pick it up. I was thinking one of the coolest things I thought about the whole metaphor that you've created with the drum circle and this was that in that time where that rumbling is going on between one set of rhythms has been established and there's another, and it's gotten away from everything and things are getting weird, that you've got these different types of people, right? You've got some of these people are the hard drivers who are like going to bang the drum harder to establish a new rhythm, and experiment and that type of thing. You've got others who are like, no, we need to keep the old rhythm, and they're going to bang as hard as they can on the old rhythm to try to hold it back and keep it where it was. You've got others who are just lost in between, and some of which will take the standpoint of, oh, let's experiment and let's go crazy and have fun and let's see what happens. And others who are lost in the middle go like, I'm not going to play at all because I don't even know what to do. And when you shared that metaphor with me in the process of this book about that's how organizations go through change, and you have those people who are driving hard to create something new, those who are pounding hard to keep it the old way, others in the middle who are just like, I don't even know what to do. That was so powerful for me. In fact, it was when I read that, then I knew that this was really something special, Jim.
Well, thanks, Everett. And even as you're talking and sharing all of that, right, I kind of get lost in the metaphor. Are you talking about people working, or are you talking about people in a drum circle? Because the experience definitely has a great deal of overlap. The power that I found in the drum circle, though, is I got to have the experience in a completely different environment. I wasn't in my typical everyday work conversation. Instead, I'm in a drum circle where I'm having to respond not necessarily with words, where I'm having to pay attention to the body language and how people are looking and their facial reactions. And we often get the chance to explore change in our regular world, our everyday time. But to be able to explore change in a completely different way, in a way that's so foreign, I find that people learn about themselves in that experience, in the foreign experience of change, and then just asking them to, okay, what did you learn here that you can take into change that occurs in your workplace as a leader? How did you show up here? What do you need to do different? All of that just seems to flow out of people so much easier once they have this body connection, if you will. Once they get their physical body engaged into this idea of change and growth, and just like you said, seeing all those different responses to change, or really hearing them through the music, and then taking that next step. The Rumble Zone effort is really about people taking the next step. And often that starts by going inside and asking myself, all right, how am I responding? What is my emotional response right now? What are the thoughts or the judgments that I'm having? And asking yourself, how are those moving towards where you want to get? Or how are those judgments, emotions, thoughts really holding you back? And what I shared in the book is not only the stories of my clients, but quite frankly, the stories of me, because I couldn't get to the place of working with my clients the way that I do if I didn't do the same work myself. So the rumble zones that I went through really required me to stop and say, okay, I have cancer now. How am I going to deal with that? I think it's a choice for us to say at every rumble that we face, how am I going to move forward here intentionally? Sometimes that moving forward is, look, I just need to stop everything and be present with the moment, be present with my own emotional response. But that's really the key for me of taking the metaphor that you laid out and taking it to the next level, Everett, is learning and then asking those next questions of yourself.
So I want to get to some other questions here with you. In fact, Celeste just put up a question for us I thought was really good. So how is this book relevant to readers today, given the current pandemic and our nation's developing awareness of racial injustice? And she says she's really excited about it too. So how would you address that question?
Look, I don't mean to pretend to say that you read this book and all those things are going to be solved, because they're not. But I want to strengthen individuals' capacity to deal with these times of change and ambiguity. And I think that's how people can be helped, is thinking about how can I strengthen my own skills, my own abilities, my own presence inside of the rumble zone. And I know for me, whenever the pandemic first kicked in, I really struggled with how am I going to respond? And I saw so many people wanting to, put up their virtual solutions and, carve their business out in the virtual world. I couldn't even get my feet underneath me. And so I had to be present with the pain, the challenge, the ambiguity that was happening. That's one of the second chapters of the book, actually, is this idea of how do you be present and mindful to what's happening around you. And so from the pandemic perspective, certainly, I know that being present with that challenge has been helpful for me to find ways that I can contribute. Now, as we've come into that broad level awareness of racial injustice and what needs to be done there, I think it's been another call to action for me, quite frankly, as a white guy that's trying to figure out how I can best support change and growth in our country and in our communities, and support my friends who I just am continuing to learn and have an appreciation for the challenges of systemic racism and how that's been built into so many of our systems. So I think that this is the time that so many people are asking themselves questions. How do I move forward? How do I come to terms with this? And what I've laid out in the Rumble Zone are what I believe are universal strategies that can help us both go inside to understand our own emotional and thought and physical responses, and then also think about how we can begin to share those with others, how we can step into that role of leader by stating what it is that we believe, what our point of view is, and offering that to be of service to those that we lead.
Now, thank you for sharing that. I think that's important. In your book, you also talk about this kind of conflict between it's not about me as a leader and it is about me as a leader. Can you kind of open our eyes a little bit about this?
Sure. This idea of paradox, two things being true, again, in this time of ambiguity and change that we're all going through, we have to get comfortable with this idea of paradox. And at the heart of it, especially for leaders, is that idea of, look, this is not about me. Like when I teach a workshop, for example, and I'm there supporting leaders in an organization, I know that my focus is on them, their development, their growth. But I also know that as the leader of that workshop, I know that they're only going to go as deep as they know they feel safe to go deep. And one way that I can help them feel deep is by sharing how I go deep. And so that's how I make it a little bit about me. I often tell in the beginning of workshops when people have an opportunity to share their story, I share my story of surviving cancer. Not to get people sympathy, but I want people to know, look, we're talking about real life here, real life. So just because you're in the workplace doesn't mean you can't talk about the challenges that you've had from a healthcare perspective and that how that's influenced your life and influenced your leadership. And what my clients have told me is that when I tell those stories, I'm basically widening the boundaries of what they believe that they can talk about, that's living inside of them, but they don't have a voice for. And so that balance of it's not about me, but it's all about me. I think it applies to organizational leaders as well. The organizational leader that says, I want you to do all of these things, everyone in the organization, but I'm not going to do those things because I've got other business to do. Well, that message doesn't land really well because it is about you, organizational leaders. People do look to you as a role model. They look to you as, all right, she is setting the tone of the organization. How can I follow her leadership? So it is about you in those perspectives. And then you need to make it about them. What can you do to step into that servant leadership place? Make everyone else successful through your example and through you removing roadblocks for them. So that's to me the balance of that key paradox of it's all about me, but it's not really about me at all.
Thank you. Marcia here has a question for you too. Let me put it up here. Can you talk more about one of the strategies in the book, Strive for Empathy?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Marcia. And certainly, you start to hear these strategies: courage, being present and mindful, and Marcia brings in this idea of empathy. Having empathy for the people that we lead, for the people around us, having empathy for others when you want to instigate your own change, I think is one of the ways that we support ourselves through change. In the book, I talk about the fact that we all have these unwritten social contracts with each other. We expect people to act and live a certain way. And then when somebody makes a change, when I made a change and I let my friends know, okay, so I've discovered that I'm a gay man here and this is how I'm living. I had to have empathy for them because they knew me a different way for so many years. My good friends in Texas, they had to have a little bit of time to catch up with how I was changing. And so I wanted to be empathetic with them. I don't count on their response for me being successful in my life, but I do know that when I change, other people are having a change to that social contract. And so if I can be empathetic, if I can put myself in their shoes, I'm more likely to be able to understand their perspective and then get their support, get their love, get their encouragement, which is certainly what happened to me. I know that empathy is, I think, more important than ever in so many things that we're seeing in the country these days, right? Again, as a white person, I've heard the message, I need to listen more. I need to ask questions and listen. And that's certainly what I'm doing. And it's really helped me understand empathy at another level. And I think surviving in the rumble zone, getting to the other side of it, and having those stronger relationships at the end of the chaos doesn't happen without having that empathy for the other person.
Okay. So I want to remind everybody here that the book is available now on Amazon, The Rumble Zone: Leadership Strategies in the Rough and Tumble of Change. And in fact, right now you can get it there for 99 cents. It's a launch day special. Definitely pick up the Kindle version of the book, pick up the paperback as well if you like. But I think this is there's so much in here, and I really appreciated one of the comments here came from John Hayden, and he just wanted to make it clear that people understood the drum circle metaphor is powerful, but not necessary in order to understand the book. It is a metaphor. This book is not about drumming. It's about what happens in an organization going through change and through a time of change, and really how powerful that is. while I was here, I feel like I've got to share a couple of these pictures. Um,
Yeah, that's that freer side of me that gets to express itself every now and then.
well, and I think I love that because, here we've got you, maybe that's in Hawaii. I'm not sure where it is. And then we have you, doing something more in a conference room environment. And then here, on the big stage, doing what you do, and this is really wonderful stuff. So, Jim,
and what I would just say, Everett, is most of those photos are people that are not drummers that are playing with us. They're just other people that are looking to explore their organization, their human capabilities through a different way. This could be a book about gardening. This could be a book about people that get into book clubs. It's what really resonates with you that gets your full body engaged. And how does that experience in connecting with others in that way, what can you learn from that you can take to your leadership role in an organization, your family who you're leading, your community as well? The idea of learning from these activities that I love, how I'm really excelling there and how I can pull that over to other aspects of my life. That's what I did. And I happen to have shared that story through the Rumble Zone. But yeah, I appreciate that comment from John. It's not a book about drumming. It's a book about life, about leadership. It happens to have some drumming stories in the background, as well as some others of other organizational leaders, other situations, other workshops that I had been in, teaching emotional intelligence, interpersonal communication, and the rumbles that I have seen from attendees there, and the hurdles that they've overcome, and what I've learned from my clients around that true resilience to get through the Rumble Zone.
Now, we've got time for just a couple more questions here. And if anyone wants to put more questions in the comment log, we'll do our best to address them. But one of the things you talk about in your book is being humbly curious. And I'd like you to expand upon that.
Again, and another strategy of dealing with the Rumble Zone is this idea of curiosity. The humble curiosity piece of it. I see a lot of people that ask questions that say they want to learn something, but they're really just asking a question to try to find someone to prove their point of view. So there's not a lot of humility in that. There's a lot of, let me seek out the person that can give me the response that confirms the belief that I already have. It's not curiosity. It's looking again to find that person that can justify what you already believe. This idea of humble curiosity, it says, can I go into a conversation open-minded and really listen to what the other person is saying? Not try to convince them of another point of view, but really understand theirs. In the book, I share a conversation that I had with my mom as we were figuring out how we were going to care with her from a long-term care facility as she aged. I had tried to do a lot of things to take action to make something right. I made progress with my mom when I approached her with humble curiosity and asked her what was the most important thing to her as she aged and approached dying. And I found, from a personal perspective, my own humility in that moment was able to help me connect with my mom in a way that I hadn't before. So this idea of humble curiosity, whether it's going as you're supporting a parent, going and supporting a friend, finding new avenues to pursue as a business. You're not going to find new avenues to pursue as a business if you go in there thinking you know all the answers. So how can you check your own ego, your own point of view at the door, and enter that conversation humbly curious? Is that idea? And again, all of these things, it's so easy to talk about, and it's a lifelong ambition. Because just when we think that we have this down and the curiosity down, some kind of external stimulus happens and we get triggered. Our emotions take off and old stories start to come back in. I talk to a lot of people that are going through challenges, and they try one of the strategies that we've developed in a coaching conversation, and then they'll come back and say, I tried that once and it didn't work. Well, in my experience, when it comes to change around behavior, around attitude, around our mindsets. It's not a, oh, I can try this once and either it worked or it didn't. They're really lifelong attempts to change behavior, to grow and to learn. I think that's the rumble zone too, is knowing that I'm going to face myself again and again and again when challenge comes up. But I'm committed to getting to that other side and finding the better for myself and my family, and my community. And really thriving in the rumble zone means I got to be in it. And so that to me is how that kind of comes together. And in the book, people can see how that conversation with my mom ends. That humble curiosity conversation with my mom, because I know Everett, even so many of my clients, when I start to talk about that in aging parents, I see people responding to that, challenged with that. And again, I know all this looks even more complicated in our days of pandemic. It's the time to go inside and to find out, how do I want to be? How do you want to be in order to get through this in a way that feels authentic, that feels real, and really matches your values and beliefs?
Now, Jim, on this topic, you know, the book is available, but if people want to go deeper with you and with this, how do they get in touch with you? What steps should they take?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the name of the book is also the name of a website, The Rumble Zone. You can also go to my website, which is jimboneau.com. At both of those places, you'll see some of the work that I do, from coaching in organizations, the type of workshops that I lead, and partner with in organizations as well. I also do events that are not in organizations, whether it's supporting the drum circle community. As a matter of fact, on August 21st, we're doing a 4-hour introduction to drum circle facilitation here in the Seattle area, but it's going to be virtual. So people could certainly tune into that. If you come to my website, you'll find the link to be able to sign up for that event. And I'm going to be offering some additional webinars and some other videos to see in my website, jimboneau.com, as we continue to roll out the book and all the ideas that we're working with Rumble. So use my contact information, head over to the website. Maybe if you want to check out a virtual workshop, come check out my website and think about coming to the virtual session on August 21st. And of course, yeah, check out the book and see how the rumble resonates with you, and what rumbles happen to be coming up in your life now, and how can you intentionally move into those. I'm going to keep coming back to that in every piece of work that I do with folks, because the more we are aware of it, the more intentional we are, the more likely we are to get to the other side. So those are some of the ways that folks can work with me, Everett.
Well, fantastic. Jim, thank you again for joining me on the Livecast. Thank you more for writing the book and seeing it through. So few people that set out to write a book ever complete it. And a smaller number still take the steps necessary to see it come to life and really get the message out. So I'm just grateful for you taking the steps to do that. For those watching, again, pick up the book on Amazon at 99 cents. There's a link in the chat and on the screen there. But Jim, thank you so much for your time today. And congratulations on what appears to be a stellar book launch. We're really excited to see how the rest of it all rolls out today, but you're really killing it. So keep it up.
Well, thanks, Everett. I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody at Ignite. You've been a great partner to work with to help me get my first book published here, and I appreciate your time today and your curiosity into the Rumble Zone.
And by the way, and let's throw some other things out there while we're at it, to Marcia and Celeste and other people in your team that have all come around you. It is not a solo project to do well. That's certainly the case. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to roll the exit bumper and we'll be out of here. So thank you all for joining us, and just really, really excited. Oh, a couple more comments we should be throwing in here. And it looks like John Hayden, oh gosh, John Hayden has shared a link. Do you want me to put the link up to the Jam? Looks like Jamtown Live, or you want to leave that out? I don't. Oh, actually, it's in the comments already, so people will have it. So
yeah, that's the link to that workshop in August. So that's great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And we'll take us on out. Take care.